What's up, world? I'm Aslan. He's Irish FL, managing editor of Warchant.com. This is Warchant TV. We're talking spring football previews. We're moving on to the wide receiver position, but it's receivers. It's a preview. It's not a hostage video. We're okay, right? We're not here against our will. We're at the Civic Center after Florida State's victory over Notre Dame. Let's talk football, though, Ira. Wide receiver, that's got to be the one position, I think, on offense. Even if you're a cynic or a skeptic, you have to be pretty excited about what returns and the possibilities that exist.
A lot of options.
Yeah.
I mean, there really are a ton of options. A lot of guys that have done something at this level, from Tamarian Terry to even Pokey Wilson and Keyshawn Helton and Trayshawn Harrison, and some of those guys that have contributed. And then the guys who didn't contribute last year, Warren Thompson and Jordan Young, the guys who sat out last season, they looked the part. And we saw them in practice, and they did a lot of good things. So I think there's a lot of options. Really, you lose Nooney Murray and you lose George Campbell, who transferred to Penn State, which is interesting based on what he did his first 3 or 4 years in Tallahassee. Certainly, it's a loss of talent, but not in production. So they also have Keith Gavin, who I think a lot of people forget about because he didn't have a memorable junior season. But
started that opener, though. I think he started that opener against Virginia Tech.
He did. I mean, it's a ton of guys. And I think the most interesting thing about that group is they've got they'll have a new position coach in Ron Dugans, and they're going to have a new offensive coordinator in Kendal Briles. And I think it's going to be interesting to see who.
And a new quarterback.
And a new quarterback in James Blackman, and how that impacts those guys and who steps up, because I don't know if it's just going to be a matter of the same guys getting all the reps. You may see some new faces.
Do you feel at all that, I don't know, like, do we think that, like, Helton, Harrison, and DJ Matthews are interchangeable, or do those three guys all have a unique sort of skill set to where, two of those three can be on the field opposite Tamori and Terry, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely Helton and DJ Matthews seem to be key. Trayshawn Harrison was pretty emphatic that he's working outside as well, and he thinks he's a complete receiver and can do that as well. We'll see. I would think DJ Matthews, to me, is a prototypical slot guy, and you'd like to see more out of him than we did last year. I thought he was a guy that I really predicted. I think when we did our Warchant Top 40, I thought he was going to have a huge year, and that didn't really happen. So that, again, he's another guy that kind of gets a fresh start. We'll see if these coaches connect with him. But yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be the thing to me. I mean, I think, how many receivers get on the field at a time? Do they play a lot of 4 or 5 wide receivers? How do they use them under Kendal Briles? And how do those guys step up? I mean, because again, last season, when it was pretty clear that, Warren Thompson and some of those guys weren't going to get on the field, I'm sure it affected their preparation. And that's the hardest thing for freshmen. So now those guys know that there's a real opportunity for them to play. And what kind of spring do they have?
Right. Speaking of, pass catchers, I mean, and what we're going to see from them and what they can do, what about the tight ends? I mean, that's a position that no longer is in cast of the mold of what you think of a tight end, especially what you saw with Jimbo Fisher. I mean, real dynamic talent with Trey McKitty and Cam McDonald. I mean, I would imagine those guys maybe have as good a chance as anybody to maybe be on the outside with to spell Trayshawn Harrison or in certain packages. That's got to be a big boon for Briles in this offense.
Yeah, we definitely saw Cameron McDonald last year a lot of times in practice working at wide receiver, split out wide. Trey McKitty has that ability. I think, Willie Taggart talked about it at times last year, talked about the need, and Walt Bell talked about the need to go with those bigger bodies in the red zone, but they really didn't take advantage of it. I think that, again, these are all things that we're all going to be watching every day of practice and any scrimmages we get to see. Willie Taggart did say at the signing day party that he would have at least a couple practices would be open to everybody for the whole practice. So we'll get some opportunities to really get a good look at what they're doing, what Kendal Briles is doing, and what these individual guys are doing. But yeah, the tight end position, I think they've got, as good a talent as you really need for this kind of offense. I mean, they definitely have the talent. They lost Nasir Upshur, who didn't seem like a great fit for this offense. Jonathan Vickers graduated, was another guy that came in as a fullback. They do have Gabe Neighbors back. But they've got nice talent at tight end, and they've got a lot of talent at wide receiver. I think, if you look at Kendal Briles and his decision to take this job, as bad as Florida State's offense was last year, he's got to feel like, man, if we just can fix the offensive line to some degree, there's a lot of weapons here. There's a lot of talent on that offensive side of the ball.
Last thing before we go, there was no receiver sign in this recruiting class, which is fine because they had plenty of freshmen last year. Who do you think maybe from that crop that didn't see the field last year is perhaps best poised to make an impact?
Yeah, we didn't mention DeMarcus Adams is another guy that didn't play last year. I would say Warren Thompson. I'm probably torn between him and Jordan Young, but I'd say Warren Thompson. again, just physically, you look at him and you say, he looks like those guys. Remember last year, the Texas A&M receiver that had the big game against LSU.
Yeah.
It just looks like a grown man playing against boys. Now, Warren Thompson obviously hasn't done it at this level yet, but physically, he looks like he carries himself as a big, older dude that should be physical. And he'd be my pick, but it's more of a hunch than anything because it's not. We haven't seen him yet. How about you?
No, I would say Jordan Young. I picked him last year, and I know he had that hamstring injury, which really affected his ability to prepare. I mean, talk about these guys; they know they're not going to play. I mean, Jordan Young was hampered with an injury, so he definitely knew he wasn't going to play. But it just seems like he's got a better blend, maybe of some speed and quick twitch stuff. Whereas Warren, I think, is more of just a physically imposing sort of specimen out there. So I'm going to pick Jordan Young. One of us will be right, hopefully, unless DeMarcus Adams comes out of nowhere off the top rope. We'll catch up with you folks later as we continue our spring football preview editions on Warchant.com. For Ira Maslon, thanks for watching.